Welcome back to the Libertators channel, everybody. I'm doing a little bit different video for you here today. Figured, we've been talking about the tournament we've been practicing for, and that happened last weekend. So here's our kind of Blades of Khorne and Soulblight little tournament recap for you. It was held at Go4 Games in Metairie, Louisiana, and the focus was really just a hobby tournament. One day we had about, I think it was 16 participants by the end of it. Our kind of goal with this video is just to kind of encourage participation in the local tournaments, the one-day events, and getting out there and really building your community and enjoying the local environment at your game store. We wanted to highlight Go4 Games in Metairie, Louisiana, and a wonderful venue they have there. Mac, the owner, is a great dude. He gave us an awesome recommendation for a restaurant after the event. And John, the TO, ran a top flight operation there. He's run several tournaments before. We actually met him at the first GT for FLG Gaming in New Orleans. And we just want to share our experience and discuss the games and learnings that we had along the way there.
Yeah, I just want to throw a shout out to John. It was definitely one of the most professionally run single-day events that I've ever attended. We've attended quite a few over the past few years. Again, it was just very, very well done as far as time frame and keeping the game going. It was very impressive, to say the least.
Yes, very much so. Would recommend it if you guys ever get a chance. Go out there. So the armies that we played, just kind of a little idea of what our thought process was going into it. I played the Soulblight. Here with me is my brother Philip. He's been on me for a long time to play some death factions. I've been hanging out pretty heavily, playing a lot of Skaven, but finally convinced me. He ended up getting a pretty good deal on a what was it, a Vanguard box?
Yeah, I found a Vanguard box that was accidentally mispriced on a website, I assume, because they changed it as soon as I ordered it. For $32, got a Soulblight Gravelords Vanguard box. I should have ordered more than one, but I was like, this can't be real. And lo and behold, it was real, and they changed the price as soon as I ordered it.
Yeah, so that was the kind of the forced start of the Soulblight army. We've both been going back and forth on kind of toying with starting. So between that and a couple other units, I bought a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, and just kind of started moving from there. So why did you pick Khorne?
Khorne's always been on my radar because the models are cool. I like having painted a lot of different armies. I haven't ever really experienced painting the red color scheme so much, and that's the first thing that got me into Warhammer and the hobby was painting in general. So I was interested in experiencing that. Like I said, it's always been on my radar even before the new book, and when the new book came out, I started looking at it again and mulling it over, and then just the idea of going with the Blades of Khorne with the actual vegetable corn was so good of an idea I couldn't pass it up. I just had to go buck wild with it and make it a kind of a funny paint scheme. That was what pushed me over the edge there. And yeah, I'm very happy I ended up going with it. It's got the depth that I miss from Beast of Chaos with its summoning. Beast of Chaos still has a lot of depth, but it kind of really took the wind out of my sails when Beast of Chaos lost its summoning. So I wanted to roll into something that did have summoning, and Blades of Khorne was the next best thing.
Yeah, so it's good, and they turned out real well, and you'll see we got some pictures coming up here, and we'll just kind of go through our respective lists in each round and what battle plans we played, and kind of the overview of what our thought process was and the opponents that we played. So we'll go right into the Soulblight list. It was a pretty standard list here. I've been seeing it being practiced on and the other videos from the channel there. Your basic Legion of Blood list, Grand Strategy Empire Corpses to bring back three summonable units over the course of the game there. Had Neferata, spell Waste Away, has -1 wound, -1 to wound and -1 damage to a unit within 18 inches. if I got it on unmodified cast to 9, it gave me a, I could choose 2 units, so it's pretty good. Nephra did a lot of work for me. She also has a notable 5-up auto slay if she does damage with her I can set dagger there. Came up a couple times during the event. And Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, big beat stick there. One of the models that got me wanting to play the army. With the command trait Doom Minions, let me pick D3 units that are not monsters or heroes to be able to hit on 2s when I'm within combat with the general. Had him with the Death Lance, Artifact, Cloak of Mist and Shadows, pretty standard. Gives him basically a 3-up ethereal for melee. Had Spirit Gale, kind of went back and forth on that spell, especially after the battle scroll kind of nerfed it a little bit. That was also an issue we had to deal with, or at least I did. Khorne kind of got to escape past on that. Battle scroll came out the day before, or the Thursday before the tournament was on a Saturday. So changed. I think my list went up like 90 points, and I had 80 points in the list, so had to drop Vampire Lord on foot. But went with the White King on Skeletal Steed, and Battle Line, 2 units of Skellies, and a unit of 10 Black Knights for the Mortals there. Pretty good interaction. Went with a Vargeist unit for Deep Strike, unit of 20 Grave Guard with the Great Weapons for 2 damage at 2 drops. And 2,000 on the nose. So the goal was to dictate the turn order, hopefully, being 2 drops, and to use the 2 big pieces, Neferata and the Vampire Lord and Dragon, to kind of boss around the pieces that are needed to control and hide behind some skelly screens. Put some Black Knights. Their biggest damaging potential was about on the charge. They'll do mortal wounds. You roll 2 dice per Black Knight, and each 5-up does a mortal, but if they're wholly within 12 of the White King on Skeletal Steed, they get to reroll charges, and those are 4-up. So the potential of 10 mortal wounds on average, pretty good. So that was the idea behind the list. I think most people have seen this type of list before, but it was my first Soulblight list. Didn't try to get super creative with it. Round 1's battle plan was the Pulse, Geomantic Pulse. Pretty good battle plan. We've seen it in a lot of bigger GTs too. You've seen us practicing it. Notable thing on this one was that you have A over here and B over on the right-hand side here. The person going second, turn 2 battle round, gets to choose where the pulse is going to be, and it'll move across the map, and you'll get 2 points for that. For holding the pulse, 1 point for holding one adjacent to each one, and then 1 for just having one. So the most you could score the first battle round was only 3. And so kind of toyed around. You'll see in some of the battle reports we did, toyed around with taking first and then being able to win the roll off and give away the turn with the advantage, winning ties because you take one first. Kind of was some of the strategy that was going back and forth. Thoughts going into this one? You got any thoughts from your side of it, playing on the Khorne side?
No, nothing amazing. Something that I did note having practiced this is you kind of want to, if you kind of want to deploy heavy on one side that you expect to be late game. In my opinion, that's how I have played it the last few times, and it seems to have worked out. It seems like a kind of battle plan. It's okay-ish to fall behind at the beginning a few points because you can kind of make up for it if you have a lot of bodies on the other end of the board where the game's going to end. And that worked out well for Khorne being as tanky as they are with their 2-up save and all the other shenanigans that they have in their army with summoning, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense because you can score when the pulse moves towards the middle of the board. You can score a max of 7 points between controlling primaries and the battle tactics. So yeah, definitely kind of a more mid to late game kind of a battle plan there. We'll just kind of get into round 1 here. For Soulblight, I played against Justin Allen. He was a cool guy playing Stormcast. I think that was the most represented faction at the tournament there. I think they had 3. He had a pretty cool, I wanted want to draw attention to his list name right here. It was Cloudy with a Chance of Meteoric Grandhammers. If that gives you any kind of indication as to what he was running.
John also gave bonus points for thematic naming of your armies, your units, and if you wrote lore. So some of the lists had some creative titles and names for their units.
Yep, definitely was a hobby-centric tournament there. You got all the bonus points. People showing up with I think the last time they had a tournament, the second one, somebody showed up with a bunch of drinkable blood bags, Kool-Aid looking things. They were playing Soulblight. So yeah, so he had a Scions of the Storm list, Overshadow on the Grand Strategy, Inspired Triumph, Lord Relictor, General with the High Priest Translocation, pretty standard there. Knight Arcanum with Lightning Blast, another one with Merciless Blizzard. Battle line was Judicator unit, one of those with crossbows. 2 units of Vanquishers, holding some objectives. Not 2 units of Annihilators with Grandhammers. There's the namesakes of the list. 2 units of 3 Vanguard Raptors crossbows. Some Evocator, some kitties. I know you like your kitties. And some
I'm a
Aetherwaves.
Kitty Cat fan.
Kitty Cat fan, for sure. Yeah, Antorian Locust, Wizard Finders, Battalion, and the Vanguard 1990. So you have Thunderbolt Volley like you do if you're doing crossbows. So when I was kind of rolling up to this game, kind of go up to the screen here. We got a couple pictures we'll share. This was kind of our deployment-ish turn 1 after he did a little bit of work there. Kind of the thought he put a lot of things up in the sky there. So I was trying to kind of have an idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to choose where the pulse was coming down like we discussed before. But I chose to give him turn 1 even after what we discussed on trying to win the turn roll off and give it away, because I didn't want to have to weather a double turn of his shooting if possible. And notable, the Cloak of Mist and Shadows on the Vampire Lord does not count. For the Ethereal does not count for shooting. So I kind of backboarded there, gave him turn 1. And he did a little bit of shooting and plinked off some skeletons. And turn 2 just kind of moved up, did some movement up the right flank there, as you can see. Neferata Zombie Dragon pushed up, screened out. The Black Knights kind of took that side over there and did some back and forth. And tried to push out to avoid his shooting. Vargeist tagged his long strikes and actually got into his general. So I did win the turn roll off going into 2 and gave it to him and chose the pulse on the obvious side over here by the zombie dragon. And moved forward. He dropped his Grandhammers down. You can see right there. Took all of my Black Knights out. Did like 25 damage. I was very surprised by that. I hadn't faced them before. I usually face the ones with shields. But yeah, that was difficult. But I figured I'd just leave them in the back corner there because they move pretty slow. So yeah, chose the pulse over here on the right-hand side and just kind of started camping out. Brought the Grave Guard down for another wave. Didn't want to risk a 9-inch charge. And just kind of the game progressed across, and I built up a pretty good lead there. He had some issues with that terrain piece right there. Very nicely painted. The terrain was great. But it was causing a lot of issues for him because my skeletons could get inside of there and hold the objective, and his bases were almost too wide to really get through the gaps, and the kitties had to go all the way around, as you can see there, and a little back and forth. So he was the terrain setup was definitely hurting him. But yeah, ended up winning this game. I think I ended up scoring like 32 points or so. Got all my battle tactics and my grand strategy. It was a pretty good game. Justin had me kind of not sure which way I would go on the startup in terms of strategy, but went with giving him the turn away so I wouldn't have to get shot twice, and then things worked out from there with the roll-off, be able to pick the pulse, and that really set me up for a good lead. So that was a great game with him. And that was turn 1 for Soulblight. Kind of going into your Khorne list now.
Yeah, if y'all have kept up with some of our other battle plans, you'll see a very similar list, if not the exact same list, on our battle reports. Basically, it's a Skull Fiend tribe, mostly mortal list. Got Scarbrand in there as the only demon unit. My general is going to be the Lord of Khorne on Juggernaut. One of the main reasons I really enjoy the models range from Blades of Khorne, just those Juggernaut models, man. I'm just glad they finally got some rules that are really nice. That 2-up save is great. So the general's command trait is going to be Diabolical Purposes to give him +1 to damage characteristics of attacks made with the general's melee weapon. That targets a hero, so it's going to give him that sweet 3 damage when attacking heroes. And for his artifact, I went ahead and I gave him the Gore Cleaver. And the Gore Cleaver is just going to give him basically a built-in curse on one of his weapon profiles and increases the rend of that 3 damage axe that he's going to be toting around. So it kind of makes him a hero hunter, so to speak, and he's tanky enough to do it. With an all-out attack and a finest hour, he's going to be 2s and 2s with -2 rend, 3 damage each. You can hit him with the prayer for Unholy Flames to give him -3 if you really want to, and you can just really dish out some damage if he wants to pop off. Rounding out the rest of the leaders, I have my 3 priests, 2 slaughter priests, and a realm gore ritualist. I took a warlord battalion, and that gives me access to an extra enhancement. I took the prayer enhancement, so all 3 of my priests have 2 prayer scripts that they will know. They'll only be able to chant 1, but they know all 6 from the prayer lore. Just because everything's just so good in the Khorne's prayer, you really, really want all of those prayers. I didn't chant them all the time, but just clutched enough to have, if you want to throw an extra rend, or if you want to get a bloodbind off to move in the hero phase, it's nice to have. For my Null Stone adornments, I took the Pouch of Null Dust because it's, in my opinion, the clear winner to take with Khorne, especially if you're building an anti-magic list. I already have enough unbinds in here, as you'll see as I go through the list. Triumph Inspired, it didn't really come into effect, and Grand Strategy is going to be Slaughter or Sorcery, which I got every single game. 2 of the games didn't really matter, but I still got it. For Battle Line, I have my 2 units of Mighty Skull Crushers kitted out with the axes, and then 2 units of Skull Reapers, which are Battle Line and Skull Fiend Tribe. I also get a Fight First effect if I roll an unmodified 8+ on the charge, which it really came into effect in a few of my games. I have a Cygor that is coalitioned in for those extra 2 unbinds, so I have 4 unbinds in the list. I could use the Heroic Action, Heroic Willpower if I needed a 5th, or if they got out of range of my other unbinds, I could throw that out there just to get an extra one. Skull Altar, obviously. Hex Skull Gorgers, which are just so amazing. And I never leave home without them, honestly. And then the Bleeding Icon, just because I had 50 extra points left over. And if it ever goes off, it's really useful. I took the other battalion is going to be the Wizard Finders of Andtor, is what we're calling it. And that never came into effect throughout the tournament, but I was already super high on drops with Warlord, and just the ability to have +1 to attacks characteristics on an already fairly high attacks army would really pay off. So in that I had the Cygor, the 2 units of the Skull Reapers, and then I had 1 of the 2 Slaughter Priests in there.
Yep,
That's the list.
pretty good list there. Going into your first round there.
Yeah, I've got quite a few reps with it, so I'm happy with the list so far. So the first round I played against Brett. This guy was one of the best sportsman players that I've played against ever, quite frankly. It was fun because it was Khorne versus Khorne. He had a beautiful army that was mostly 3D printed, a lot of which you couldn't even tell was 3D printed because it was just processed so well, and the STLs he used to print were really good. So in the list he had Slaughter Sorcery was his grand strategy, so we both started out with 3 points each, which was kind of hilarious. He had Scarbrand and 3 Bloodthirsters, followed up with some Claws of Karnak, 2 Skull Cannons, all of the invocations, Warlord Battalion, and just a few heroes on foot. Slaughter Priest and his Bloodmaster. It was a fun game. It was very intimidating to see on the table with all those big bads. It was very intimidating to say the least. Oh, my bad. He only had Unfettered Fury, Scarbrand. I thought he had more than that.
Maybe I missed one.
Yeah, he had quite a bit of. I think he had all 3 types of Bloodthirsters and Scarbrand. We'll look when we get to the pictures. But yeah, like I said, it was a lot of fun playing against the first time I ever played against Khorne, honestly. It's hilarious that I've never played against Khorne until I started playing Khorne. It's my first Khorne game, and it happened to be Khorne on Khorne.
Yes, indeed. Gonna go on to the to some of the pictures there.
So I deployed kind of mid-board-ish, a little more heavy on the left-hand side. The pulse came down on my right, which I think he ended up taking turn 1. To think of it, he stayed out of range, couldn't get his skull cannons in there turn 1, so I didn't get shot, which was really, really nice. He moved up, scored a few points in turn 1, and neither of our prayers had any effect. He did get the Wrath Axe off and moved it up to where the pulse started off, and that did a few more wounds early on. It was kind of a posturing game early. He took his Flesh Hounds and put it on the second objective from the right and screened out that way. Claws of Karnak moved up, pre-game movement, and just kind of postured up and tried to played it almost like it would a counterpunch army. And so he just moved up and scored a few points. You can't score a really big turn 1 in this battle plan. So we just moved on forward with that. I pushed forward with my
so I found it.
Crushers.
Found it here. I missed the Bloodthirst of Insensate Rage was also there. So
yeah, he pushed up forward, and I retaliated. Some of the interesting effects here, Scarbrand pushed up, and he just rolled a big 6, did 16 mortal wounds. I took a few mortal wounds from the invocation on the right, the Wrath Axe. I was able to murder lust these Mighty Skull Crushers on the left into his general Bloodthirster there, and that forced him to retreat in his turn, so he lost his Locus of Fury on his general because he didn't want to get pinned down. He was afraid that I was going to come in with some of the big heavy hitters, didn't want to get bogged down by that 2-up save. The Cygor, just throwing boulders left and right and really doing some damage there. I was very impressed there with the Cygor. Throughout the whole tournament, in fact, just nailing every one of his hits. Took a few damages from shooting attacks. Yeah, was able to score pretty good first couple turns. But one of the most notable things, you can kind of look at this in some of these pictures. It almost looks like I'm losing because there's not that much on the table. But the amount of damage I was able to dish out in impact damage, good boulder throws, shooting from Scarbrand as well as blood boils on his blood, the big boys. Anyway, it was able to chip them down. So they're all pretty bracketed pretty hard. So that was one of the things that I really didn't get a chance to experience in any of my other games. One of the coolest things that actually happened in this game between Brett and I was in the interaction in my turn against his Scarbrand. So he killed my Scarbrand earlier on in the game, probably turn 2, just destroyed it. He rolled the 6 with his Scarbrand and just took him off the table. And then in my following turn, I was able to posture for a charge. He didn't want to take the impact damage from the Mighty Skull Crushers, so he murder lusted into him. And my general popped off pretty hot and heavy, almost killed Scarbrand, took him down to 1 wound. He activated with Scarbrand, killed the Mighty Skull Crushers. I rolled my 2 dice for murder rolls, rolled 1 out of the 2 dice, did the 1 mortal wound, killing Scarbrand with a murder roll into the combat phase. So it was pretty clutch there. We were both like, it was back and forth. I was like, oh no, you killed my guys, and then it was murder rolls. We were both yelling. It was great. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was on the table next to you, and it looked like y'all were having a ton of fun over there.
Oh, it was a lot of fun, but it was also don't get me wrong, it wasn't casual by any means. It was a pretty steep game. He I guess hasn't really played with the scenery rules, so Deadly took off a few wounds off of Scarbrand. Actually, I rolled the 1 for it because he wanted me to. Rolled the 1, then rolled D3, got 3 mortal wounds on Scarbrand in the end of the movement phase, which kind of helped take him down. Now that you realize that he died to a murder roll. So anyway, I ended up winning this game. I don't remember what the spread was, but it was nearly a tabled game. He had a few models left. He was able to summon in a unit. He had so many blood ties in this game, just from sub-faction, some of the things that went down through it. And he was able to summon in some blood letters. I ended up only summoning in a skull cannon throughout the game. Turned out that with the reroll charge, he wasn't able to get in. But it was, like I said, this was one of the most fun games. So much so that you had a favorite opponent that you picked. I wrote Brett's name down immediately after this game. I knew no one was going to be able to top him. Just my gut. It was like I said, it was one of the best games I ever played.
Yeah, and we actually found out that Brett's been watching the channel. So of all the people out there on the interwebs, he was like, "Hey, I know you guys." So that was pretty cool. Just very, very cool guy. Enjoyed talking to him after the event and all throughout. So
one of the most murder lust heavy games I've ever played, though. We were both murder lusting back and forth, back and forth. It was interesting the amount of movement that was used in that game.
Nice. So round 1 saw both you and I come out with a win. And going into round 2 there, the battle plan was Fountains of Frost. You want to cover this one? Any thoughts?
Fountains of Frost, it didn't really affect me a whole lot with... is this the one where the Anthurian and Locust explode?
No, this is the one where if you got 3 or more contesting an objective, then you roll dice, and on a 4
up... Oh, yeah, this did happen. This happened quite frequently in this game.
On a 4 up, each unit would take D3 mortal wounds just contesting the objective. So.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting of a match on this kind of battle plan. The deployment's a little far away. You want to it keeps you from piling up too many units on each objective. It's a fun one. I kind of like it. It forces you to play a little bit differently. You can't pile up on objectives. So reinforced units really help on this one to hold objectives better, especially if you have a bunch of 25 mil bases. You can stack them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yep. And so we'll be going into round 2 with Soulblight. I had played against Eric Tolar in a fixture around for a good while. Been playing with him and against him for, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years. We actually met him at the same NOLA FLG GT there in New Orleans when we met John. So that was pretty cool. In the midst of COVID, we found new friends. So he was running his gits, and he's been running this spider list like a lot. What you can see there, Plume Spike gets. He took his grand strategy, controlling X's, Bloodthirsty Triumph. He basically, what you need to know from the list is it's 9 Arachnorocks. So many giant spiders that he had to take a skitter strand to deploy off board because he didn't have enough room to deploy in the deployment zones. He just ended up with having to take losses because he couldn't even deploy. So yeah, so it was a 2-drop because the Arachnorocks with Spider Fang War Party become battle line. And they also end up, if I remember correctly, counting as 10 on objectives each. So it's kind of like playing 9 Gargants to a certain degree. You kind of got to treat them like that. They have 10-inch move, and I think they're 16 wounds. Eric's going to correct me on that. I never can tell the different ones apart, but it's always difficult. So yeah, but his general is pretty slappy. Lots of mortal wounds on the 6s to hit. I think if I remember correctly, he had either the command trait or the artifact was allowing him to do like 4 mortal wounds on the 6s to hit, and gave him an aura for extra mortals, +1 to mortals on the shamans and Arachnorocks. It was a lot to deal with and a 2-drop. So he ended up winning the roll-off on that, so that was significant. So yeah, so going forward here, this is kind of how we deployed, and at the end, I ended up winning the deployment. Yeah, the roll-off there, so I gave him turn 1, and this orange spider over here on the right is his general. He used his hero phase spell to move it 10 inches in the hero phase, and I kind of deployed everything farther back on the backboard, seeing a theme here, hide. And because that was his hero phase move, and then he moved another little bit, and he ended up failing that charge, which was good. I was kind of hoping to set up, put my Black Knights on that side so that maybe charge into him. I knew he wasn't going to get into me turn 1, probably, unless he put the skitter strand down and made a 9-inch charge, but everything else was going to have to start moving across the board 10 inches at a time. You can't see it in the picture, you did drop the skitter strand over on the left-hand side. It was over there. He told me he had the opportunity to be able to put a spider off board with the skitter strand, if I remember correctly, but he didn't end up doing that in this game. So yeah, it's a lot of meat there, a lot of legs, as it were, to the list has legs.
It's definitely a DPS check / pinning list.
Oh yeah. And he didn't have enough room, as you can see, for the deployment on this one. So the overall strategy was to let him come in, and you gotta kill 2 spiders a turn, sometimes more, and just hope he doesn't roll a bunch of 6s at some point. But yeah, so kind of turn 2 on my turn saw me throw enough Rada into the general, and I moved up the Black Knights, and this is pretty crucial right here. I actually failed or got dispelled every spell that I had. So Nephrata did not get her ethereal spell, her War Scroll spell for ethereal save off, and she did not get Waste Away off. So I had the choice: send her in with nothing, or hold her back and then hope you get the turn and another chance at it. But I figured I needed to go because the timer started, kind of like Gargants. They're all going to hit me next turn, as you can see. moved the Black Knights up, but he redeployed. I think he got a 5 on the redeploy, and I failed that charge even with the reroll. So all I ended up with was Neferata and the White King there in combat. And I was hoping she'd kill him with the auto kill on the Akenset dagger. If she does any damage and it's allocated and not negated, you can roll a dice on a 5-up. It's auto slays a hero. I did not get that, and that was pretty much costed me Neferata. I think this is turn 3, I think, after that. So you can kind of see some there's a lot of spiders gone. Turn bottom of 3, I think this is what this is. But yeah, most of the Black Knights ended up dying there. They went across to the back to try and interdict this purple spider, and I did end up dropping the Vargeist back to kind of stretch him by taking one of the objectives behind him, and it did pull the spider back, which is good. If you can get your opponent to attack the stuff that you want them to attack, then that's usually pretty good. So yeah, it was back and forth, man. I was fighting with some dice rolls, and Eric was rolling some good rolls too. We're not blaming it on the dice for sure, but it was definitely a tactical game, man. Lots of moving back and forth here, but brought back some skeletons after he killed most of them with the goblin shooting. If you ask him, like, he probably did more damage with all of the 5s and 5s goblin shooting off the back of these spiders than he's ever done, and I believe it. So but between the skeletons coming back at half unit size, taking some objectives behind him, we started to see some of the strength of Soulblight with the recursion, even though I only had a couple of summonable units to let me do that. But the Graveguard really did a lot of work in this game. Neferata died turn 2. He won the roll-off, and the Zombie Dragon was just struggling with the aura -1 to hit, being on 4s natively on a lot of his profiles. And I don't think I landed a single Death Lance hit in this round or the first round. So those would have been damaged 3 on the charge and -3 rend, but he did do some good shooting. So that worked out. But this was a tight one, man. And this is the end state here at turn 4. We ran out of time there, and we were told to freeze the game there at that point. And John the TO came over and kind of helped us talk out as much as we could, and we kind of got to this end state here that ended up being a draw, where neither one of us would get our grand strategy because I just failed all the 3-up and 4-ups to bring back all the summonable units. I just couldn't get it. And then, yeah, so with the game state frozen at turn 4, that's what we were told to do. And at that point on turn 4, Eric's grand strategy would not have been accomplished either. So we ended up with a draw. So that was kind of like, man, little disappointment there. But it was definitely a game, dude. Eric's a great opponent, and I enjoy playing him. And that rounded out, so a draw for me on round 2. And going into round 2 for you.
I played against Lindsay. She is a fairly new player. She told me at the very beginning that this was her first tournament, and it's probably her 5th or 6th game ever in AOS. Let me start out by saying best new player I've ever played against. She comes from a background of playing Combat Patrol and a little bit of Warcry, and she knows her way around playing a war game, I'll say that much. Didn't cut herself any slack. If she messed up, she wouldn't allow me to give her another try. She's like, no, that's how I learn. And at the very beginning, she stated her intentions that even if it looks like it's a blowout and there's not even a chance, I came here to play for the day. Someone's watching my kid. I want to play all 5 rounds. Great opponent to play against as far as a brand new player. This is my only second time ever playing against Flesh Eater Courts. First time was against John as a buy round at the New Orleans game. Little side note. But this is with all the new kind of rules and updates and factions stuff that they got with, I don't remember what supplement that was, Dawnbringer maybe. But yeah, it was an interesting list. A lot of spells that had to get off to really show the power. Lots of summoning and stuff like that. A little bit of recursion here and there, but overall, it was a really fun game. I can't really speak a whole lot to her list. I don't really know what a lot of it does, but she had a few Antentorian locusts, so they counted for 10 in this battle plan. That came up a few times, where we either tied on objectives or she beat me out just by a little bit, just for having a little foot hero there that's counting as 10 on the objectives. But yeah, shout out Lindsay, great new player. Hope to see her show up to more events. A lot of fun.
Yeah, very much so there. She was a great player. We loved having her. I did misspell her name there, so sorry about that, Lindsay. It does have a D in it. Just fat finger in there. So here was a picture that was kind of taken of y'all's deployment, I think, maybe after her turn 1.
Yeah, she took turn 1 in an attempt to get her spells up because she'd never played against Khorne before, so I gave her a little bit of a rundown on how much anti-magic the army has and just the list in general. A lot of her spells are buff spells, so they're fairly crucial to carry to carry Flesh Eater Courts through. They really need to get their spells up for extra attacks and their command abilities for fighting twice. That's really where the power comes in with this Flesh Eater Court. So she ended up taking turn 1. She tried to backboard and stay outside of range of my casters, and her first battle tactic was to cast a spell and not have it unbound. She barely towed in with one of her foot heroes on that far off upper right hand corner you'll see there. And I was able to unbind the very last spell. Got all of her other spells off, got the turn, but she did fail her battle tactic turn 1. In my turn, I was able to get the Hex Skulls off, and she moved up more so aggressively on this closer inside. That would have been my right with the zombie dragon there, and kept casting. She would cast Hoarfrost on that big unit of ghouls in the middle every turn. She'd get it off every turn. Hex Skull Gorgers and Witchbane, regardless, she would get it off, even with the Nullstone dust thrown at her. Still would get it off and roll a 3 every single time. So that was a big deterrent for me moving up in the middle of the board, because those ghouls fighting twice and having -3 rend was just, I didn't want to deal with that. So she kind of used that as a buffer force. Didn't really want to move up with it. Wanted to hold her objectives, and was attacking me with summoning, pulling her core of the army back. She summoned a reinforced unit of the new warband and tried to take out my Cygor turn 1. Made the charge, got in there. Cygor held fast by some miracle. I was able to get in there in my turn and dispatch that unit for my battle tactic of killing something with an 8 of the altar. So yeah, I charged in on the right-hand side with that unit of Skull Crushers, trying to do some mortal wound impact damage on that 5 ward zombie dragon, or Terrorgeist, excuse me. I did a decent amount of damage on the mortal wounds for the impact. Survived in the combat phase, even with fight twice from it, trying to hold it back so Scarbrand could get angry for not fighting in the first couple combat phases, so he could go in there and dispatch him off. You can go to the next picture. So there's Scarbrand aiming down the sights after that Terrorgeist. He was able to make it in the following turn. I rolled the 6, did 16 mortal wounds, just took him off the table immediately. This was a really good game. It was, I held back from that unit of ghouls in the middle and waited it out until the Frost didn't go off. She finally failed it. I think it was turn 3. I bided my time, and we both stayed even on points, scoring battle tactics here and there. I was already ahead a little bit for her failing that first battle tactic. So I didn't have to go in necessarily. I was picking off the things that she summoned, stacking Blood Tide, waiting for Horrorfrost not to go off, or to where I could get a lot of charges off into that big block of ghouls. I was able to wait long enough, got the big block of ghouls to fail its Horrorfrost, and went in with those. I had some Skull Reapers, and then I had the General that went in the middle of the board and took them out and took out her Spellcaster Savant. Sideboard took a lot of damage early on, took 8 damage, which kind of reduced the amount of boulder throwing damage she was putting out, bracketed him down just enough. The one thing that I really wanted to shout out here is how impressive the Skull Reapers can be in combat. Even in just units of 5, they really can dish out the hurt, especially when you end up rolling like 6 6s in the combat phase. And basically with their built-in curse on their war scroll, it really makes the extra mile, makes up the extra distance. Skull, Mighty Skull Crushers doing the impact damage. I was able to table her by the end of the game. We played all 5 rounds like she wanted to. There's a couple glory shots. Scarbrand fighting with the Terrorgeist, but it was fairly close for the first few rounds, and I think the turning point was whenever I took that unit of ghouls in the middle, and then from there it just started to crumble a little bit. I was impressed with Flesh Eater Quartz in their new updates. It makes them a formidable force. I can't say much for them though, being that this is only the second time that I was able to play against them. But the one thing that I will say that does a big deal for me as far as enjoying of a game is a good player, a fully painted army on either side of the table, and cool thematic mat. And this game had it all. It was a lot of fun all the way through. 2 fully painted, beautifully painted armies on a really nice thematic table. The only thing that I'd say was a negative was we had to play right up against the windows, and it was exceedingly hot. I think we were both sweating the entire time, not just from the competitive nature of the game, but from the heat bearing down on us. Highly recommend fight against Lindsay. She's a great new player.
Yeah, very much so there. Louisiana in the summer, so yeah, difficulty there. With the heat, going into our round 2 battle plan was Fountains of Frost. Excuse me, it was not Fountains of Frost. It was no reward without risk.
Risk.
Yep, same battle plan layout right here, but typed the wrong one out there for you. But yeah, so this one was pretty unique because there is no deployment distance that you have to be minimum away from your opponent, which is pretty notable. Usually it's 9 inches or more away from your opponent. You could actually deploy in combat if you needed to or wanted to on this, and your opponent was ready to put a unit right on the middle there. It was a 1-2 more battle plan. So yeah, it was definitely a melee-centric, get up in your face, leaning battle plan there. So yeah. And my game was against one of our teammates here. That's actually my son, Trevor Bourgeois. He's the guy who you see on the channel playing a lot of the armies. He was practicing with OBR, but he decided to take Ironjaw as his first love there to the event. He's been looking at a list with 18 pigs, and he's just really been excited about it. So he decided to swap over to that, and we actually made this list together there. He had basically the idea. All I did was just type in things for him and upload the list. But Yeah, he's been playing. He played Iron Jaws for a good year and a half when we first started up playing. Just fell in love with it. He loves the bacon missiles. So yeah, he had a War Clans, Iron Jaws, and Bloodtooth, as you do if you're playing pigs. Grand strategy of the WA for have a general or a battle line unit wholly within enemy territory at the end of the turn. Basically, like your take was theirs, one that everybody was taking last GHB. Inspired Triumph, he was at 1920, so he had a good bid for that. Mega Boss and Maw Crusher, Hulking Brute, the Destroyer artifact, as you take, once per game, extra 3 damage, if I remember correctly, and the Mount trait for Fasten for a hero phase move should you need it. He always likes running 3 War Chances, just loves that extra damage, as you would if you're playing Destruction. Orc Weird Knob on Shaman, with the big green Hand of Gork spell for a teleport utilization there. The beats he took were the Get 'em beats, which, if I remember correctly, give 3d6 charge, and he took 1 Fix 'em just as a little cute pick there for healing a little bit of wounds that might be done from shooting or anything like that in the Crusher. 2 units of 6 pigs and 2 units of 3 to give him a little more utility on the MSU. 2 drops, and he won the roll-off for this one and gave me turn 1. So kind of the deployment here was pretty difficult, man. I was lining up against all the bacon in the world and didn't really look very good for me. So the idea was to screen with a skeleton unit here, put the Vargeist down as almost a secondary screen to avoid him making the end run around. You got to know when you're playing Iron Jaws that when they Mighty Destroyer, they can Mighty Destroyer a unit in the hero phase for hero phase moves. So, but if they're within 12 inches of something, they have to attempt to charge instead. So a little bit of that back and forth going on here was useful for me because he had to charge instead of hero phase moving and didn't give him as much movement as he possibly would have had. But he sent that 1 unit of pigs out far left on the flank. Had a unit of 3 pigs came in point blank there. Everything charged up with extra damage. And I have a Black Knights here on the threatening a counter charge, just basically saying if you can't get through something, then I'm hitting you with these guys. Neferata for the -1 to hit. Aura, if you have a unit wholly within 12 of her, -1 to hit. That helped take off a lot of damage from him this game. He was using all out attack to make up for the difference a lot. Zombie Dragon was back a little bit. My first battle tactic was Magical Dominance, forget a spell off and it not be unbound. I deployed the Zombie Dragon outside of 30, went for the spell, got the spell, and then just got greedy and was just too scared, basically, of all the damage there. I wanted to go for the Waste Away on Neferata, and he ended up getting the Unbind. So I did fail the battle tactic. It was a pretty good blunder on the get-go there. Got me pretty down. But yeah, I kind of went, it was just a lot of just grinding in. We're going here into the next picture. You can just see the screens all melting from the pigs. He got 6 pigs straight into the Zombie Dragon there. The Vargeist actually, because of the way things were kind of set up when we deployed, they actually only kind of got tagged a little bit, and with Mighty Destroyers requiring you to charge when you were within 12 inches, it really hampered his movement there. I used those big bases to tag things and kind of gum up the situation in hopes that I would get a turn to where I could throw in the Grave Guard and the Black Knights and Neferata and just kind of just hope, I guess, at this point. So the Vargeist actually made it through his turn. And he did, I think, get the double turn and took it and just charged in some more stuff. I think he took his battle. One of the battle tactics that was a notable one was the one where you retreat 2 units and then charge 2 different units. He ended up failing that battle tactic with a double 1 on the charge and no ability to reroll. So what I thought had put me behind with failing my first battle tactic ended up kind of coming around there for me. The Zombie Dragon just got lifted by those 6 pigs, and it was just very disheartening. He did nothing this game. But I was able to kill between the sent the graveyard back to take that unit of 6 that took him out and Neferata, and screened with the Black Knights to kind of did some charge damage and then screened with them. Use those cavalry bases, guys. Big screening potential, and this big terrain piece right here ended up being the same board that I played Justin on in round 1. And that piece right there on the almost center line there really saved a lot of damage from coming into me just because of that choke point. So you want to use that terrain pieces to your advantage. Ended up getting the pigs all down. The Maw Crusher just pretty much whiffed at this point, and was sitting there teed up for me to come in. But he got the double turn back, and this was the state here. I think it was going into my turn, and all he had was that weird knob, a couple of war chanters, and the Maw Crusher there just lifted all the Black Knights, the rest of the Grave Guard. But as you see, yet again, Soulblight's strength with the recursion. You'll see for Unit 5 skeletons being brought back over here on the right on that objective. Unit 5 over here on this objective. Just getting me the points on the backside, just forcing him to either go back or continue to push forward. So the splitting there, you can't underestimate that psychological value. But ended up winning that game somehow. Got the 5 up on the auto kill on the Maw Crusher. That was pretty notable. Came a little late. I don't know if it would have made that big of a difference, but it definitely was like the nail in the coffin. I actually even got the 5 up auto kill from doing the damage with her on a war chanter as well in this game. So it was this was the end of the game. Just his weird knob shaman there in the middle, and Soulblight holding the field, going into your round 3 versus Fire Slayers there.
Round 3, I played against Fire Slayers. This is the only second time I've ever played against Fire Slayers. I already had a bad taste in my mouth for them the first time, but it's just because they're a little, I don't know, a little chunky to play against, I'll say. So this was actually a really good experience playing against Marcus. He's a fun player. He's very into his Fire Slayers, I would say. Had a lot of jokes, a lot of puns, going back and forth. It was a all Magma Droth list, 6 of them in fact, and it was intimidating. I've never played against Magma Droths really before, so he was able to explain how he would play against them and how things that people get surprised by. There was no I gotcha moments in this game. I knew exactly what his army did, explained it very well. I just played it poorly, come to find out. There was a world where I won this game, but it wasn't the world we're currently living in. Again, we started out with 3 points because his grand strategy was actually
Overshadow
sorcery.
Was it?
And yeah. At least that's what he told me. I didn't look back over it. So we both started with 3 points, which we started cheering about, which was great. So anyway, we were playing again on no reward without risk, no deployment minimum distance away. So we were pretty close to begin with. I deployed right on the edge. He deployed first. He was about 3 to 6 inches back. I deployed right up on the edge. I thought, should I play this passively and hold my own, or should I try to play it aggressively and get some impact damage on him, because his Magma Blood doesn't affect you on impact. It's only from damage done by melee weapons, according to what he was telling me. So I deployed right on the edge, forcing him to take the first turn, and it was just a bloodbath. So the first thing I did, you can see that Magma Droth that's a little bit further forward, and there's kind of a space between them and the other 3. What I did, and I should have done that, but I should have pulled back with the rest of my army. Whenever he moved his first magma drop forward, I redeployed with that other unit of Mighty Skull Crushers and rolled a big 6 or 5, I can't remember. And this choke point between the two buildings here on that center objective was effectively closed off, which bought me a lot of time. If I would have held back with the rest of my army, the impact damage would have taken 1 or 2 of them off the table. And the shooting from the Cygor did quite a bit of damage. I had to lean really heavily into my prayers that did damage, like Blood Boil and impact damage and the shooting. And murder rolls, that doesn't affect the magma blood. So yeah, his army's very fast if he gets the right runes in the right order. So I had to try to buy myself time. So the mistake was not holding further back. I should have pinched off that choke point and then held back, allowing my counter strike and impact damage to really chip down his magma drops. But you live and learn. First time ever playing against a list similar to this. The most notable thing of the whole game was it was hilarious. Second of all, the general in my army for the second time in this tournament popped off and did like 16 damage in one swing against the magma drop, and killed himself from magma blood, but killed the magma drop, took him with him. So that was the coolest thing that happened. Again, too far forward, lost my general turn 1, end of turn 1, so I was on the back foot the rest of the game. Throwing brass skull meteors here, there, and yon, doing what I could, but I think the bell was rung just from deployment, honestly. There were some things that I could have done differently, but a good opponent, I ended up losing by turn 3. I was tabled, but it was a good opponent. No, I wasn't tabled. I take it back, because he couldn't reach my 2 slaughter priests hiding behind that giant piece of terrain in the bottom left-hand corner there, because his bases were too big. I hit him back there and kept just throwing blood boils at him just to annoy him the rest of the game. We played all 5 rounds, kind of, sort of. I didn't have much to move around or summon, but I got some things on the table, shot him with a skull cannon, didn't do anything with that. But it was a fun game. I look forward to playing against it again now that I kind of have an idea. This was by far the worst battle plan out of the battle pack to play this list against, because this is exactly what he wants. Throw all of his magma drops at you, just say, deal with it. And I couldn't deal with it. The funniest thing was behind the sidewall in that back left objective, there's a unit of Mighty Skull Reapers, and they just slapped the one of the magma drops in the face, and they just went slapping back and forth and refused to die. He couldn't kill him. I had one model there sitting there on 1 wound for like a whole combat phase. He missed with all his shooting attacks, missed with almost everything he did damage with in his melee, and he just sat there for a few rounds of combat and eventually succumbed to the old man yelling at Cloud, as he was dubbed in that game. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We laughed a lot. I went into this tournament trying to make 3 new friends. I think I successfully completed that objective in all 3 of my games. Great players. It was a little bit of a gut check, having lost a lot of my army by turn 2, but I was able to turn it around attitude-wise, which is a big deal for you guys. This isn't talked about enough, honestly, in our community, just keeping a good attitude even when you're losing. It's very hard. Trust me, I know, especially whenever you're wanting to win. But I was able to manage that, and it was a good game overall, I will say. Truly enjoyed playing and laughing and cutting up with Marcus throughout the entire game, even though I had effectively got tabled.
Yeah, and I think that wraps up the pictures we have there for sharing with you guys. And I think Marcus actually ended up going on to win the event, went 3-0 there. I ended up coming in second with 2.5 wins between the draw there. Eric was in third. That might just be because the alphabet, and how that works in Best Coast pairings. And you got fourth.
Fourth.
And Schriever got 10th, and my youngest there, David, got 8th. He was playing his Zinch, as you guys have seen him play there. David went 1 and 2, and then Schriever went 1 and 2 as well. So it was a pretty great event. Enjoyed it a lot. John did a great job. Venue, Mac, and Go4 Games. Great spot to go play. They got a great setup. Marcus ended up taking great best general. Lindsay got best overall and well deserved. And over there's best general. There was the Sportsman Award went to, I cannot remember who got this best Sportsman Award.
Was it the Slaves to Darkness player? Was that Henry? I think his name was.
Yes, Henry Shinnick got best sportsman. He's an awesome guy, man. We played with him at several different stores. Yeah.
We kind of caught up with him at the Chinese restaurant at lunch after between games.
Yeah, that Chinese restaurant was they were popping over there for sure.
Right next door too. Very convenient. Good food. Lots of food.
Yep. And you ended up getting best painted, man. So that was well deserved for the Khorne.
Yeah, Blades of Khorne. Yeah, the funniest thing, honestly, I forgot to mention this. I was giving out bags of popcorn to all my opponents, and everybody loved it. It was a lot of fun. I think that was one of the funniest things that we experienced. Everybody was laughing about it, and everybody loved the Blades of Khorne, which made me happy because I've been working on that for about 6 months or so, or at least since spring. So yeah, I'm very pleased. Glad I was able to take that home. Put a lot of work into it. That was the goal. Just make it look nice.
Yeah, and with getting that award there, any one of those 4 awards, whether it be best general, best painted, sportsman, or overall, with the way that John's been running this tournament series, is actually a championship happening in December, where if you're one of those players who was awarded one of those 4 awards, you get an invitation to come to that championship there, and kind of almost a miniature, I don't know, best of all kind of
series
kind of things, and you need to have a fully painted army to get to that point, and so I won the first event there back in February with Beast of Chaos, and so hopefully we'll be able to make that one. And if y'all like this kind of content, it's a little bit different. We pretty unpolished, but first time going at it. Figured we'd just share our experience and hopefully get you guys more excited about stepping out and being like Lindsay, first ever tournament, and just wanting to get a bunch of games in and just hang out with people, make connections, and share the hobby.
Honestly, Eric said it best. He said he looks at tournaments like this, even GTs, as scheduled Warhammer. It's an excuse to go out and play a bunch of games. Even if you're not competitive, but you enjoy the game, just come out and treat it as scheduled Warhammer. Have fun, especially if you have a local meta that has a lot of different variety in players. Like we have new players, we have competitive players like Eric, who enjoys a good competitive game here and there. We have some more casual players that are in the game, and new players. But overall, there's a place for everybody in every community when it comes to Warhammer, and just treat it as scheduled Warhammer, as Eric said.
Here it is. Let us know what you guys think of this. If you want any more like this, and every like and comment and subscription really helps. So let us know what you think, and y'all keep rolling those dice.